Welcome to Technado with Don Pizzette, featuring sysadmin expert Don Pizzette, security specialist Daniel Lowry, and Peter.
Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. Welcome back to another episode of the Technado podcast. I'm your host, Don Pizzette, here today with my roving band of merry men and women. We got a bit of a rotating cast today. PVR is out attending a conference, Datacom, right? I believe is where he's at, Datacom. So he's out there, and so we brought in a special guest to fill in for him. We've got Mr. Daniel Lowry joining us as usual.
Hey, how's it going? I feel like I should be like, I should have a lute or something if I'm a married
really
man.
Should.
Yeah.
And a green hat.
Yes, a green hat with a feather.
And tights.
Yes.
We could do the whole Robin Hood Men in Tights skit.
Yeah, dude, that show is funny. I don't care who you are. One of Dave Chappelle's first movies.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He was blinking.
No, he wasn't blinking.
No?
No, Blinken was a blind guy.
Oh, that's right.
He was, I don't know. I forget his name in the movie, honestly.
I do remember being in there. These are important tech matters to cover, which is why we brought in a special guest this week. Miss Sophie, how are you doing?
Yeah, I wish I knew what you were talking about.
Wow, you've got homework.
Yeah. No, but yes, I'm here filling in for PVR, probably for one and one time only, because I think when he comes back, he's going to be upset at the mess that I left. So we will see how well I handle myself today.
Well, I know you were on the podcast a couple of weeks ago subbing for me. I was out, and I don't know if you did a good job, bad job, whatever, but I'm sure it's a pretty low bar. It's pretty hard to do worse than Peter, so I think you'll be fine.
He said he picked me because he knew I could do it without threatening his job. So.
You got a plan for that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we got a lot of tech news to get to today, and Sophie, you're driving the ship this time around. So why don't you tell us what's our first article?
So first up, we've got Apple kills the password in iOS 16 and macOS Ventura. So the password's not dead, but it's, I guess, in the death throes. It sounds like Apple is looking to replace passwords with pass keys. From what I understand, it's made up of a key pair, a public and private key. So it's like a password, but it's really, really strong and hard to break, I guess. But I guess the server never learns what your private key is. It only knows the public key, but it can still verify whether you're using the right private key. Maybe you can explain that to me, because I don't understand.
Yeah, Apple had a lot of announcements this week, because they had their big September 7th event, the Far Out event. This was an iPhone event, and normally we get some good stuff out of these, like when they release a new Mac OS or whatever. This time it was just new iPhones, and they're, I don't know, the same as the old iPhones. But one of the big features that people are excited about in iOS 16 is the support for passkeys. And I say iOS 16, it's not just limited to the phones. It's coming to Mac OS, and they've worked really hard to follow the FIDO Alliance standards, which means this is coming to everything. Any web page or application that needs authentication can leverage passkeys like this. And Apple's not the only one working on it. A number of big companies are in the FIDO Alliance, like Google, Microsoft, obviously Apple. And so we're going to see more and more products from them supporting passkeys like this. Some password managers like KeePass made an announcement saying that they will be supporting passkeys as well. This gets really confusing. KeePass, passkey, passwords, all blurs together. But the technology is really super slick. It's actually, and Daniel, you probably think the same. It's actually a lot like SSH when you do certificate authentication.
Yeah, really cool. Basically, you just say, hey, I've got my private key, you've got my public key, so all I got to do is encrypt something. You can verify I am who I am because you can decrypt it with my private or my public key.
Yeah, and the best part is that private key never crosses the network ever. So what's significant here for Apple is that you generate that private key on your phone, and it goes into the secure enclave that's a part of the
that thing that Apple uses.
Well, the A15, A16 processors, they have a security chip on them that I've forgotten the name of, but it creates a secure enclave, and that's where the private key gets stored. And when you go to a server to authenticate, the server has your public key. So you have a public key that you distribute, and you don't care if anybody out there gets your public key. Anybody in the world can get it. Who cares?
Hold on, Don. Is that why they call it a public key?
It is. Shocking.
Holy crap.
And the public key only allows you to encrypt data. It doesn't allow you to decrypt data. So the server can create a challenge. And the challenge can be simple as like, what's 1 + 4?
Right.
It can be whatever, right? And then it encrypts it with your public key and sends it to you. You would be the only one who could decrypt that to see the challenge. answer it and respond, and so now they know that it's you. So it's a really neat system. It's not new by any means. Like I said, SSH has been doing this for 20 years. It's just that we're now seeing it where there's a framework built around it, and vendors can start to support it. Apple is obviously pushing really hard for it for a number of reasons, but we will see more and more adoption of this coming down the line. Microsoft has already said they're going to support it. Google's already working on it. Another number of other vendors are as well. So it'll be really cool. The nice feature to me, though, is that they're working on a process to help with signing up, like creating a new account on a site, where potentially you don't have to give that site any of your information, no email address or anything. You just generate a private key locally, send a public key up to them. That becomes your identity, and then off you go. You have total control of the data you share.
Now, Don, is there going to be, I mean, it seems like this is specific to certain things like web applications. Obviously, this is amazing. This works really well. But what about like my local machine? Are we going to start seeing that? Are there always going to be those certain spaces where the password is king and you just can't really utilize something like this?
Well, Microsoft has already laid the groundwork for this in Windows with the Windows Hello system. And so it has a lot of compatibility with the FIDO Alliance. They haven't gone all the way. Like, you can't log into Windows with just your UB key, for example.
Right.
So you have to have more. The system they're working on is kind of neat, where they have it where the application on your computer can display a QR code. And then you take your phone and you scan the QR code, and then the phone will connect with Bluetooth to the computer to then transmit the acceptance
We talked
and
about
say
this,
aloud
didn't
in.
we? This sounds familiar.
I don't recall.
I thought we did.
The Bluetooth piece is important because if I generate a QR code, like, somebody could be scanning that remotely. It could be a fake code or whatever, but the Bluetooth connection wouldn't be there if it was remote or if it was a false
So it
QR
has to be
code.
paired along with the QR, so kind of almost giving us some sort of multi-factor kind of thing.
So they are thinking about it in terms of desktop applications, and they are, this is beyond just Apple. This is something we'll see over the next couple of years start to roll out in apps everywhere.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's pretty significant. I kind of wonder sometimes for like the average person on the street, they probably don't care.
Yeah.
It's like an extra level of complexity, but it'll actually make life easier. Do either of you, or Sophie, do you use like Apple Pay or Google Pay?
Yeah, I use Apple Pay from time to time.
You're an Apple person. So when you do Apple Pay, you go up to a gas station, whatever, you tap your phone, and that does, or if you have an Apple Watch, you do it that way. A lot of people don't know this, but when you have a credit card attached to Apple Pay, when you go and do a payment, it's not actually transmitting your card number. It generates a unique card number for that individual transaction every time you do it, and it's invisible to you, so you don't realize it. If somebody were to steal that credit card number, it doesn't matter because it was only good one time, and that's the only time it was used. They can't
And that
do
one
anything
time
with
is
it.
over.
Yeah.
And so it's something that most people probably don't care about, but it really bumps their security up to the next level.
Yeah, there's definitely been, especially like you said, at gas stations, even at gas pumps where they've got now you can use Apple Pay as opposed to a card. I've known people that will, well, that's not secure. I'd rather use my card. But it would be more secure to use Apple Pay in that instance, right? Because they've
With all
got
the time you spend at gas stations, that would be
me
really good for you.
specifically.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Supplemental. You gotta panhandle where you can.
Yeah, that's right. Where's Sophia? Oh,
My
there she
standards
is.
are low.
Man, she's washing windshields at the gas pumps.
The bar is low.
Got to get that Four Loko money.
All right, well let's jump on to our next one. What do we got?
So this next one is a cybersecurity concern. It looks like it says ex-Uber executive heads to trial. The security community reels. This is from Slashdot. So Uber's former chief of security, his name's Joe Sullivan. He's facing criminal charges due to a mishandling of a security breach back in 2016. And from what I've read here, it sounds like he was a pretty highly regarded guy. I was a federal prosecutor back in the late 1990s. He was one of the first to work on cybercrime cases, and then jumped into corporate security. But he was fired in 2017 due to that issue with the security breach, and ended up getting a new job soon after that at Cloudflare as chief of security. But he was charged in 2020 with 2 felonies as a result of that issue at Uber. And so now we've got other chief security officers, I guess, that are concerned about being held liable or legally for things that maybe the company did wrong or mishandled, and they're going to be financially viable for that. Is that right?
Yeah, so it's an interesting story. The thing that happened years and years ago is, while he was the CISO for Uber, they had a breach. An attacker got in, got Uber data, and what they did is, instead of disclosing to their customers that a breach happened and whatever, instead they reached out to the hackers and they said, "Hey, if we pay you, I forget how much, something like $200,000 or $300,000. If we pay you, let's just say $200,000, would you sign an NDA and say that it was consulting that you did, like like a pen test,
Nice.
and then it wasn't a breach, it was a
this was an
test
authorized
and whatever." So it turns out you can't do that. and
you can't whip out the pen test fairy and wave a magic wand and go, "Oh, this wasn't a breach; it was a penetration test."
And so what he's saying is, look, it was the company that made that decision, not me individually, but I'm being sued or held liable or get criminal charges against him. And Uber said, "No, sorry, dude, that's on you." And so he had to sue Uber to cover his legal fees for the other side. So it's all going back and forth. And what people are trying to figure out now is if you're a CISO, so if you're in charge of security and your company has a breach, it's kind of a given that you're going to get fired, right? So
I was about to say, isn't that like synonymous with alcoholic?
Yeah. So
because it will drive you to drink.
a CISO's job, in the media at least, a CISO's job is to fall on their sword, basically, if a breach happens. But now, if they could have criminal charges put against them because of a breach, well, people are worried about that, and people are starting to get up in arms, but they're losing sight of the fact that this guy tried to destroy evidence, right?
Yeah.
The fake NDA, well, it was a real NDA, but it was the fake pretense. That was fraudulent activity, and that's where the real kind of crime comes
What's
from.
a little fraud between friends, Don? Come on, man. You can be such a stick in the mud.
Now, Daniel, I think we've talked about this before, outside of the podcast, because you create hacking videos and training and stuff on YouTube.
do.
Do you ever worry about the legal ramifications of that?
So actually, I did for a while, right? I was a little worried about, like, should I be saying, because I don't typically go, "Hey, don't use anything that you see on my YouTube channel for wicked purposes. Don't do that." Once in a while, I might say that, but by and large, I don't. I'm like, do I need to tell people to not break the law? Is that like how it works now? Do I have to also say, "Hey, don't murder your neighbor and eat their skull"? That's something that should be inherent to everyone that you should just know.
I think that's going to be the quote of this episode right here. If we did episode titles, that would be it. Don't.
You like how I qualified the murder as some sort of also cannibalism?
I like how you went to eating their skull, though,
Yeah,
because
well,
that's
bone
a
marrow.
bone.
Yeah, bone broth is
Do you have
very
marrow in the
Good health
very a big
benefits.
deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would wonder, is there bone marrow in the skull?
Let's find. Wait, no.
Who's got a computer?
All right. If you out there know if there's marrow in the skull, please like and subscribe or whatever.
That's the kind of viewer we want here at Technado. Sucking the marrow out of a skull piece right now. Oh, man, we get on my keyboard.
What a coincidence. All right. Speaking of skull marrow, there's activity in the world of wireless, right? So
There is, yes. Yeah. Great segue, Don. Thank you for that. So this next one is about Wi-Fi 7. It says Intel and Broadcom demo Wi-Fi 7 transfer speeds of, I think that's 5 gigabytes per second. It's not gigabits, right? It's
It is gigabit.
See, gigabit.
It is lowercase b is
I
a bit.
had a 50% chance of getting it right.
You were
and I can't
100%
read.
wrong.
I can't read. So this is from...
She 100% doesn't care.
This is from tomshardware.com. It says this over-air transfer is 5 times faster than Wi-Fi 6 can achieve. Maybe I just don't pay attention. I didn't realize there was Wi-Fi 6 and Wi-Fi. It's like the Fast and Furious franchise. Like it's going to be Wi-Fi 8 Tokyo Drift.
Honestly, I think that she's pointing out a very important piece of information here. Is no one really gives a crap usually as far as the consumer goes. They're just like, it gives me Wi-Fi then?
It's just Wi-Fi.
And it's a little bit faster. Oh, it's a lot of it. Well, hell yeah, sell me that. I like it.
I didn't realize it was a franchise.
She's holding out for Wi-Fi Hobbs and Shaw.
Yeah. Man, that's the good one right there. The Rock is in it. It's amazing.
Well, it's better than it used to be, right? It was like 802.11 AC and 802.11N, and you didn't know which one necessarily because
that's true.
Yeah, so it was a whole mess there.
You just know 7 higher than 6. That's how numbers work. So
Right.
therefore,
You assume it's better,
Yeah.
right?
I thought this article was kind of timely because just last week we talked a little bit about wireless and how they were achieving some of these higher speeds.
Yeah.
And so Wi-Fi 7 is the one that is leveraging some really neat technologies. So you've got 3 different frequencies at work. You've got the 2.4 gigahertz, and 5 gigahertz, which are both used today by most of our modern wireless networks, and Wi-Fi 6. And in Wi-Fi 7, they're going to add in the 6 gigahertz frequencies, which are unlicensed frequencies that are allowed for personal use without being registered with the
FCC.
There we go, FCC.
Yeah.
Thank you. And so they're open for anybody to use. And so newer antennas, as you buy newer laptops, newer phones and stuff, will actually be able to connect on all 3 frequencies at the same time.
What?
And if they do that, you'll be able to achieve up to 5 gigabits of bandwidth. Now, why this is significant is that most computers today still come with just a 1 gig wired connection, right?
Yep.
You can get a 10 gig, there's 2.5 gig, there's 40 gigs. You can get some that are like that, but very, very few people are wired for it. Gigabit Ethernet is kind of the standard wired connection. So we're finally at that point where the Wi-Fi will be not just faster, but like significantly faster than a wired connection, assuming the network is not congested.
So at full capacity, you'll be receiving those lovely 5 gigabit speeds. But if you're, some hardcore gamers in your house and everybody's playing a different game or streaming services or something like that, you're probably going to see. Did it kind of go into the idea of how much less or like how much latency would you experience and that kind of stuff? Or are they just kind of like marketing, hey, 5 gigabit speeds?
They are just marketing the 5 gigabit speed. So that is a single transfer pushing in a controlled environment. They could sustain 5 gigahertz that way. But in reality, it doesn't work that way, right? When you have an access point, it's got antennas.
Yeah.
And a single antenna can only send or receive data at
any given time.
It can't do both. It can't send and receive. It can't receive data from 2 people at once.
They keep hoping, though.
Yeah, so it's a collision type network. It's a mess. So that's what slows things down, and that's why when you see some of those really fancy gamer routers, they got like 8 antennas on them and stuff.
Looks like something out of the Wild Wild West movie with Will Smith, right?
Like an upside down spider.
Yeah. You killed it. Now it's dead.
It does look like a dead spider.
It
if you
does,
think
doesn't
about it? Technology is grand.
That's why they call it the web.
That's right.
But yeah, so it doesn't change that. You still need a bunch of antennas, and they do have like MIMO technology, multi-in, multi-out, and all that. But it's still based on having a lot of antennas. But having the extra speed is kind of nice, and we'll see this dropping in the next couple of years. So if you're thinking about upgrading your wireless right now, the 6 gig stuff is going to get cheaper, and Wi-Fi 7 is right around the corner. I said 6 gig.
You meant Wi-Fi 6. Yeah. Well, now the neckbeards can put their pencils down and I make a note to write to Don.
We'll never hear the end of it on all those social media networks that I don't look at.
Don can't wait to not read your comments.
That's right. Yeah. You might as well post on MySpace.
That's right. The only social platform he's still on.
That's right. You find me in the Yahoo Fantasy Football Chat.
Yeah.
That's
sponsored by Yahoo.
All right. I think we beat a dead horse on that one. Let's jump to our next one. Sophie, save us.
So this next one is about Twitter. Twitter had an issue with one of their data centers recently.
No one cares.
That's what I'm thinking. This is extreme California heat knocks key Twitter data center offline. This is from CNN. So due to the extreme weather going on in California right now, Twitter's Sacramento data center experienced total shutdown of its physical equipment on September 5th. So it's in a non-redundant state, basically meaning they've got 2 other data centers that are still running, I think in Portland and Atlanta. But if one of those were to go down, they would not probably be able to service traffic.
Was this a hacker named Extreme Weather? Knocked the data center down.
Sitting at his desk, he's got his hood up.
Yeah, that's what's up.
No, it's fancier than that, right? It's force majeure.
Force majeure. Oh, yeah, look at you.
Insurance name. So I found this interesting for a number of reasons, right? So one was the fact that Twitter just has 3 data centers in the U.S.
Right, yeah.
Now they're down to 2.
For an online company like that, I just assumed they had more. Now we are just talking about the U.S., right? So that they do have data centers in Europe and South America, in Southeast Asia. So they have other data centers out there. But in the U.S., they only have 3. And I say it like, oh, they only have 3, like there's somebody's desktop sitting in one. But these are massive.
That would be awesome.
It's all running off a gateway PC. Into the EPC.
That's right.
So they do have these, rather large, sophisticated, well built out data centers, but it's not as redundant as it could be. And I think back to the early days of Twitter. Now I remember using Twitter when it first came out. And do either of you remember the fail whale?
No, so I've only had Twitter for like 2 minutes, and I was like, "This is dumb," and I turned it off.
I think I was 6 years old when Twitter first came about, so I probably was not mentally present for that.
So have you heard of the fail whale?
Cannot say
Have
that
not.
I have. No.
Wow. All right. So in the early days of Twitter, and really it was like for the first 3 or 4 years, Twitter failed pretty frequently. And when it would go offline, they had this status page that
The
had
good
like
old days.
had a sad whale on it. And I don't remember why it was a whale, but it's just what they had.
Was it running in Docker or something? Was it like the Docker?
This was pre-Docker.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I
And
don't
so,
even know when Twitter came out. That's how much I can't stand Twitter.
It was 2006.
It was
There you go.
Yeah.
back before everybody thought Ashton Kutcher
that
was
was before
super
YouTube,
creepy.
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Because
I
YouTube
don't-
came out in 2007, right? Is that
Somewhere
about
around
right?
there. Yeah.
I'll take your word for it.
So it used to fail so often, though. People called it the fail whale, and you just expected to see it like once a month. But now they've grown into this massive, multi-billion-dollar organization that can't sell itself, and so they don't fail very often. And they didn't fail this time either. That's worth pointing out, right? So the data center had to go offline because of temperature, went into thermal shutdown, which is just insane. But they still had 2 other data centers. And what they were saying is, while that primary one was down, they were still fine, but if they lost a second one, they'd be in really bad shape, right? So they wouldn't be able to service everything they'd basically be at like 50% capacity. So some people would get the fail whale instead of actually getting the Twitter page. It didn't happen, right? So they data center came back up the very next day and they were back at full capacity. But it was really interesting. And I couldn't help but think on a smaller scale, like if you have a 3-disk RAID 5 array and 1 disk fails, all right, hey, RAID 5 just did its job. I'm still online, it's calculating from parity, but if I lose one more disk, you get really nervous. And for that next day or however long it takes you to get another hard drive, you're
Especially
nervous.
when you realize you bought that from a batch, and you're like, "This is failing soon."
Yeah. And then you pop the new drive in, and if it's big enough, it'll take hours to rebuild. And you're like, oh, great. So now it's reading and thrashing all the other disks. It's just a matter of time.
Yep.
That's a nail biter. And that's apparently how it was at Twitter last week.
Well, good. I like it when they have crappy service.
It's just funny to me because it said that there was a whistleblower who I guess used to be the former head of security for Twitter that said this was going to be an issue, that they had insufficient
And they
data
were
center
like, "Nuh-uh."
redundancy. Yeah, I'm like, was nothing done about that? Your head of security, like, you didn't think that maybe that was important?
I don't know what to think about that part of the story. And I didn't, there was a whole other kind of side thing. I'll try and be factual on it, I guess, and not stick too much opinion on it. But Twitter years ago hired a very famous security researcher whose nickname was Mudge. That's what he was known in the various communities. I forget what his real name is.
Zatko is his last name, which is fun.
Yep. So they hired him on as their chief security officer, and he was there for several years.
Yeah.
And then he left. And I don't think he was fired or anything. I think he just left. And he came out very recently, and people are saying that it's potentially timed with Elon Musk trying to get out of the Twitter purchase deal. But he came out and said, look, I warned them about their poor security practices and their poor redundancy, and they didn't do anything about it. And I'm blowing the whistle now and saying this is all stuff they should have done. People are questioning the timing of it. But then it gets a little seedier because they just paid him $7 million to shut up.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. So Twitter just paid him I believe it was $7 million, somewhere around there, to stop blowing the whistle.
How about that?
And he stopped blowing the whistle. But now Elon Musk is saying, well, wait a minute, this guy knows something, and I want out of my deal. So that's not really tech news most people care about, but
that's more financial information.
But I think having 3 data centers, having one go offline, and the people didn't even notice it, like, that tells me their stuff is set up pretty well. I find it hard to believe that they're like, running on popsicle sticks and chewing gum in the background.
That would be awesome.
Anything is possible.
I'm really kind of hoping in the back of my mind that is true. 'Cause we ran this large organization and technological giant on a gateway PC.
Is that renewable energy chewing gum? Like, you just wind it up and it spins out for a little while.
You got to feed that mouse. He's going to stop running that wheel.
Goodness, I can't believe it. Now I feel old that neither of you have seen the fail whale, but
I'm just out of touch.
I'm old enough to have seen it. I just don't like Twitter.
well, there is that.
You missed it by choice.
Yeah, I did. Happily. I had no reference of that.
All right. Well, we've made it through our tech news. We do have a couple more articles we want to get to. We've got a dough segment and a tinfoil hat, so we'll get to see who screwed up and who's
Crazy as a coot.
crazy as a coot. That will be our second quote of this show. So we got that coming up. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with more Technado after this.
Welcome to IT Pro TV, an e-learning company with thousands of hours of engaging video training for IT professionals with fresh content added daily. What makes IT Pro TV stand out? It all starts with our edutainers, who create better than classroom experiences for training you look forward to watching.
So an edutainer is someone who takes a topic, an educational topic, and makes it more fun, enjoyable. My vision for IT Pro TV was to make the product that I wish I had when I got started.
The dashboard is great because you can actually pick up right where you left off. You can also end up seeing new courses that are available to you, and with a membership, you have access to a variety of study tools.
Follow along with virtual labs and test your skills with practice tests. And unlike traditional training, you aren't handcuffed to your desk. Sure, you can watch from there or from your couch with Apple TV and Roku apps, or from anywhere with mobile apps. The training is even available for download. If you're ready to watch and learn with the IT pros, check out the flexible membership choices online today at www.itpro.tv.
Do you know what's better than being an IT Pro TV member? Being a member for free. Hi, I'm Don Pizzette, co-founder and edutainer here at IT Pro TV. Once you sign up for an IT Pro TV personal membership subscription, you'll automatically be part of our referral program. Then all you have to do is share your personal referral link and code with your friends and colleagues. Every time one signs up, you get money off your subscription. Sign up enough and your membership is free. That's right, access to all your favorite IT training, totally free. Kind of feels like stealing, doesn't it? Check out the link below to learn how to get your code and start sharing today.
All right, welcome back to Technado, everybody. We're going to dive right back in with our next segment, which is what? I've gotten confused now. Sophie, where are we at?
As far as I know, you named it Who Got Pwned, but you keep calling it something else.
Oh,
So
I
don't
do
know.
tend to do that, don't I?
Now I'm confused.
It is a security segment, so let's run it.
So this one is about. When I first read this, I was concerned because it's about. There you go. There it is.
It's
There's
the
a little
dose.
animation.
Now it's a dough segment, no matter what. That's what it is.
So this
Forever.
one, it's called GIFShell or GIFShell, I guess, if you're not educated. GIFShell, it's an attack using Microsoft Teams GIFs or GIFs. So I was concerned when I first read this because I use GIFs a lot in Microsoft Teams because I'm a fun person and I like to do that. But it's an attack technique that allows threat actors to abuse Microsoft Teams for, I guess, phishing attacks or to execute commands to steal data using GIFs. And it bypasses certain security controls and modifies attachments. So
I love the confused look on your face.
I'm primarily confused because I'm reading this and Microsoft's like, yeah, we're not going to do anything about it because it requires that a user's already compromised, I guess. So technically, it's not an issue with Microsoft. It's I guess a user issue. I don't know. I'm a little confused.
Yeah. No, this one's kind of interesting. So Microsoft Teams is an Electron app. We talked about that last week, and so because of that, it's fairly complex. It's got a lot of infrastructure behind it to make it work. And that can be taken advantage of. There's a lot of vulnerabilities that can be found there and taken advantage of. And in this case, they found a creative way to do that with animated GIFs. Now, animated GIFs are kind of neat. If you take the file format, normally when you get an image file like a PNG or a GIF or whatever, it's just a binary encoded picture and that's it. But an animated GIF is actually an archive. It's kind of like a zip file almost. And if you were to open it up, it has individual pictures that represent each frame. And so when the animated GIF plays, it opens the archive and it just starts displaying image after image after image. And that's why they don't typically have sound either, because they're just the image files. Although they can, in some scenarios, have sound. It's a whole weird standard. But that means that Teams or any other program has to do a little work to display that animation. And anytime an application has to do work to display something, that's something a hacker will try and take advantage of, especially when it comes to like opening an archive, because there's self-executing archives and ones that can contain executable code inside of them. And in this case, an attacker found a creative way to do that where they can actually create a reverse shell using an animated GIF. In other words, you just think you're viewing a picture of Homer sinking into the bushes or whatever, and in reality, you're opening up a remote shell where an attacker can get into your system even when you're not looking at it. Seems pretty scary. But when I read through it, the way it was described, like step one was they had to get a foothold on your machine. They had to put a some kind of a responder or something like that on your machine that they could reach out to and talk to. And then when the GIFs were loaded, it would catch those and react. So I always make the argument of, hey, if they've already got to get a foothold first, then they could have just used that. They don't actually need the GIFs. So this didn't seem like a very practical attack to me, but I wanted to get your opinion on it, Daniel.
Okay, so this is a very complicated way to compromise this. Okay, so doing the reverse shell portion, yes, the machine has to be compromised. But this researcher found a way to compromise the machine and drop what's the word you were looking for, Don, was a stager. Right?
Oh, yes.
So the reason we use stagers is because they don't necessarily do anything malicious. So therefore, they bypass any kind of security. So stagers are really great because they just go, hey, I'm not really doing anything. I'm just kind of hanging out. But if some other thing happens or a time occurs or whatever, then it reaches out and allows for the malicious activity to take place. So this is kind of like that's what they mean by this being like a multi-step. So this person did find that they could send from an external entity through Teams, because you can do that by defaults. I can send you a message if I am also a Teams user, even though we're not sharing an organization or have any kind of connectivity. I can send you a message, and inside that message, I can modify that message, because by default, I can send you a message, but I can't send you an attachment. So what they did was they sent an attachment to an organization they could send attachments to, grabbed that information, modified it so that when I send you an attachment, basically bypassing that security. You get the message. It looks like a regular JPEG or something like that. You click on it, and it actually runs code. Right? And what it does is it drops something on that starts looking at a specific folder area, which is a log file, which is accessible by anybody that's on the system, right? This would be the Teams, the application itself, any user that's on the system. It can look into that log file. It monitors for the download of a GIF. If I send you that GIF. Well, I've got the stager on there. The stager can look at that GIF. It's base64 encoded. It has some specific ideas that it should be looking for to let it know that, oh, that's the payload I'm looking for. Once it sees that, it de-encodes that information, runs the shell commands you're looking for, encodes that information as it's done, puts that as a file in there, and then looks for. Actually, I think it reaches out to it's reaching out to your attacking GIF teams and sends the request there, and then it says, oh, well, I don't have that file, but I'm going to de-encode this information, and that is the output of the command I ran. It's very complex in the way that it runs. It has multiple steps, which is why Microsoft was like, well, not any one of these things is a serious concern. The problem was they didn't see that as a whole. If I ran every one of these things in succession, I would successfully be able to even do things like a NTLM hash stealing, because I can run code with that dropper section when I send you that initial stager. That initial stager could run remote code and then grab your password, run it back to my machine, make that request with that information, and I can crack that, or I can send that along to the domain controller and make requests on your behalf because I have your NTLM hash. So a lot of moving parts in this, very complex, very cool if you're into this kind of thing, right? Because you basically get access to their machine with the stager. From there, you have a covert channel that's bypassing all of Teams security because it looks just like normal Teams activity. So it's not seeing it as, it's not looking into that. It has mechanisms that are saying, well, this is trusted, therefore I don't need to check it. So it's bypassing all the Teams security, giving them shell access through a covert channel. Very cool stuff.
All right, now building on what you said, the security researcher that found this, Bobby Roush, he did report it to Microsoft back in May. Microsoft did not respond. They reported it again in June, and Microsoft has just chosen not to patch or has not responded on this particular one. So they did responsible disclosure. Fast forward to today. Now they've done public disclosure, but this is not patched. Does that mean we need to worry about this?
Does it mean you need to worry about it? Well, now that there is public exploit code for this, so you can download both the drive-by download, the staging type of thing. It's like a PowerShell file, and you can download the server side where you can send commands and receive the output from Bobby Rausch's Git page, or GitHub. So yeah, I would think that it wouldn't be long where we would start to see this being exploited in the wild. Honestly, it is complex, but APTs and things like that would probably start looking at this as a legitimate way, because all it takes is a good phishing campaign, and then bada bing, you're gaining access to systems.
Now, as an individual, I'm not sure what you could do, but if you have a Office 365 or Microsoft 365 subscription in there, you can disable messages from external recipients.
Correct.
You have to look and see whether you're actually using that. But for uninvited guests, for people that are just trying to email in from the outside, you can block that type of communication. So it might be worth looking into that until a patch gets out. But I imagine Microsoft will probably respond a little bit faster now that this is out in the public.
Yeah, I would say so. Hopefully.
All right, so that one, I mean, I guess we could say it's a who got pwned, but I liked it to be a doe a little bit better, just because Microsoft had the chance to fix it and didn't.
Yeah, I would agree with that, because no one technically has been pwned yet. Right?
Yet being the operative word,
yet
right?
being the operative word. I feel like there's some Russian hackers out there going, this looks good. We will use this.
Yes.
I like it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Bobby Rausch.
All right, well, let's jump to my favorite segment, which is the tinfoil hat segment.
Yeah, speaking of Russian hackers, I guess it's...
The moon landing was
wow, we
fake.
have another
Paul
animation.
McCartney's
Look at
been
that.
You've never actually watched the Technado.
I didn't realize y'all did it every time.
Do you
understand that? This is new for me. Wow, it keeps going. Okay. Well, speaking of Russian hackers, or I guess Ukrainian hackers, in this case, this one's from NDTV.com. It says Ukrainian hackers honey-trapped Russian soldiers by using fake profiles of women. So it's an organization called Hack Your Mom. Funny. Started by a Ukrainian IT expert with the help of some additional hackers. I believe they're up to 30 now that are doing this. So what they're doing is they're using fake accounts with photos of attractive women to lure Russian soldiers into, I guess, unintentionally disclosing their location, and they then forward that information to the Ukrainian military. So it's like, I guess, catfishing with really, really severe consequences for the person that gets catfished, because it's not like you're just, I bought an Apple gift card for this person because I thought they were a pretty girl. It's like, we might die. Like, I've doomed us all,
You know, the dating scene is so hard these days.
Yeah, I know. Even during wartime. Yeah.
So I thought this was really neat because they're creatively using what would normally seem like completely useless skills to actually achieve something cool. So first off, catfishing, a dating site. So that's one. So they're pretending to be various available women, hot singles in your area, I believe. and so posing as that. And then the second thing that they're doing is they're basically doing geoguessing. Do you guys ever do geoguessing?
I've never, I mean, I know what it is, but I've never done it. Yeah.
You're familiar with it, Sophie?
I think I've watched videos of people doing
okay.
it, but I've never done it.
I should clarify. I have watched videos of people doing it. I can't do it myself. But the idea is you get a picture of somebody, and based on items that are in their background, you figure out where they are. And so these available women in Ukraine are basically asking these people to send selfies and saying, hey, GI, or whatever, I don't know what the Russians call
Comrade.
send me a photo of you, in action. Battle action. Let's clarify.
What's this site again?
And then basically they get the picture, and then they take the background and figure out, and they actually found we'll call it a hidden base. It wasn't buried or anything, but they were able to locate a military base outside of a city that I don't know if I can pronounce right, but Melitopol. And they were able to turn that over to the Ukrainian military, which then was able to act upon that intelligence. Really, really creative way to use stupid sites like dating systems and things to figure out and actually get intelligence. Would this be classified as OSINT? Or what would
I
this
think
be?
it would be under OSINT. I mean, using open source intelligence and of course, then there's the idea of the social engineering as well, right? They are social engineering them into giving that information to them. So it's a little 1-2 punch there. I think this would fall under both of those categories.
So the important lesson here is the next time you're on a dating site, you're on Match.com or whatever, just know that
During
you might be,
wartime.
Yep. You know, I kind of wondered about that. All right, so and you know, there's all politics around this and stuff too. But you're a soldier in an invading army.
Yeah.
You're in a country that you're actively trying to take over,
An occupied city.
and you're on a dating app. Like, exactly, what do you expect to happen there?
Do you think this is going to end in, you know, hey, I want to get with Marisha here on this weekend.
It does
so
say
pretty.
they used several social media networks, including Telegram. So I wonder if it was just kind of on any site they could find, Instagram, Twitter, whatever. And
Is
but
Telegram
also,
a social media?
apparently,
I thought
mean,
it was just like a messaging app.
I think you can post stuff on Telegram. I think, but
That's public for everybody?
I think so for
Okay.
people that are on
I don't know.
Telegram.
Or maybe they
Yeah.
tweet it out like, for a good time,
Call,
hit me up
yeah.
on Telegram.
Yeah.
But what you said still applies. If you're in the middle of a war, what are you? Why are you on Twitter? What's the point?
What do you have in common? Like, oh, you love Ukraine because you live there. I love Ukraine because I'm trying to take it over.
Yeah.
And, I think we
That's
got
a
something
match
in
made
common.
in heaven right there.
I'm actually on my way to you right now.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what the whole story behind the war. It's just one big love connection.
Yeah, I'll make sure that we don't, firebomb your house.
Yep.
From Ukraine with love.
But soldiers are people, and so they
have needs,
have
Don.
the same flaws that all people do. But I think this is a very creative way, though, that shows where sometimes we think of cybersecurity researchers and people as not really being able to contribute in an all-out war, but here we see more cybersecurity warfare or cyber warfare in general happening than ever before. So it's really neat.
Yeah, this is like what we're seeing now is setting the stage for how warfare happens from here on out. We got to start like teaching these kids at West Point and whatnot how to
Create a fake profile on Tinder.
Yeah, right. All right, gentlemen. Today is creating a catfish profile. So this whole new meaning to the word sock puppet here, boys.
I got my PhD in catfish.
That's right. Crazy.
This is the best article we reported on this year. Really it is.
I was trying to tell them about the my favorite last year, which was the eBay people that were sending like
the spiders
pigs
and
so crazy.
how to cope with the loss of a spouse.
Yeah,
that was
that's right. I
aggressive
forgot
stuff.
about that. Yeah, so insane. I don't know if this one will make that list, but it's pretty good.
We shall see.
Yeah,
I don't think I was present for any of that. So time to do some research, I guess.
yeah.
All right. Well, while we're on the topic of really exciting things, if you are watching this episode right as it dropped, boy, you should stick around the IT Pro TV website because we've got a webinar coming up. If you go to itpro.tv/webinars, these two chuckleheads, Daniel and Sophie, are going to be on there talking with John Strand from Black Hills InfoSec about stuff, right? What are you guys talking about, Daniel?
Anything cybersecurity related. This is a very you and us, right? This is interactive. You get to be part of it. Put your questions in the chat. We're answering that junk live on air. That's the whole purpose of this, is to have someone come in from the outside who's a well-known and respected person in the InfoSec field, like John Strand is, and you get to ask us questions. We get to answer those questions, ruminate about those things, and wax eloquent. So it should be a good time.
Yeah, I don't know. This is the first I'm hearing of it. So I guess I'll just have to figure it out.
Who are you two people? What am I doing here?
Yep, so that will be an exciting one. Again, you can check that out, itpro.tv/webinars. And then, we like to hear from you at Technado as well. You can always jump over to technado.com to view all of our past episodes and even send us communications. Remember, if you send some listener email in or whatever, and we cover it here on the podcast, we'll give you some Technado swag, a chance to get a t-shirt or some other items, stickers, things like that. We've got it all. And even in this episode, I don't think I mentioned it, but our very first article, we were talking about passkeys. That was a result of some listener email. They asked us to talk about passkeys a little more because we covered it very briefly a few weeks ago. So we love to do that stuff. Just reach out to us on any of the various means. Technado.com is an easy way, or technado, our other website. It's actually the same site. Or social media. I joked about not looking at social media, but we actually do look at our social media quite a bit. In fact, that's the only reason we pay Peter. And so you can reach out to us on Twitter and YouTube and other areas as well. We'd love to hear from you guys.
Yeah, send Don a message. Tell him if there is actually bone marrow in the skull.
Which we did look up during the break, and there
Yeah.
is bone marrow in the skull. We were able to decipher that one. Sophie, thank you for filling in for Peter. You did a great job.
Of course. Now, if you could just unchain me from the chair, that would be great.
You got to turn that radiator down too, Don.
They moved me out of the basement. And that's really all that I can ask. So it was fun. I had a good time.
So, this is your second time having been on the podcast. The old saying is, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So do you think you will ever be back on again?
I think for the right price. No, yeah, it was it was a good time. I like doing this kind of stuff because I sometimes will watch it after the fact, or I'll walk by and see y'all, in here working on this stuff, and it always just looks so fun. And I'm on the outside looking in, so now I get to be on the inside
We'll
for
make
however
sure to
brief.
send you spiders and don't kill yourself books.
That's right. That's right. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, hope you enjoyed it. And, be sure to tune back in next week for more Technado. We'll cover great tech news, all sorts of exciting things always happening. Thanks for watching. Signing off for Technado. I'm Don here with Sophie and Daniel, and we'll see you next time.